The wind tore across the plains like it had teeth, biting at skin, ripping at coats, carrying dust and regret in equal measure. The sun was dropping low, bleeding orange and red into the horizon, when the cowboy reined in his horse outside the shack. It wasn't much to look at. Half-rotted boards, a crooked door hanging by one hinge, smoke leaking from a rusted stovepipe like the place itself was struggling to breathe. Around it stood children, too many of them, barefoot, hollow-eyed, silent in that way only kids who've learned fear too early ever are. The cowboy didn't dismount right away. He sat tall in the saddle, shoulders squared, jaw set like stone. His coat was worn but clean. His boots were scarred by miles, not neglect. This was a man who had seen the world chew people up and spit them out, and learned how to bite back. An older woman stood in the doorway. Her hair was grey, pulled tight, her hands trembling as she wiped them on her apron. She looked at the man like prey looks at a storm. He finally swung down from the horse. The leather creaked. Spurs jingled once, sharp in the silence. His eyes swept the yard. One child clutched another's sleeve. A boy tried to stand tall, failing. A little girl stared at the ground, rocking on her heels. His voice cut through the air like a whip. "Are these all your children?" The woman swallowed. Her lips moved before sound came out. "Yes, sir." He took a slow step forward. Then another, each one deliberate. Measured, how many? 12. He exhaled through his nose. Not anger, calculation. The kids flinched anyway. The cowboy crouched, bringing himself down to their level. He didn't smile, didn't soften his voice. He didn't need to. Authority rolled off him like heat off iron. "You hungry?" No one answered. The woman did. "They eat when there's food." The cowboy straightened. His jaw tightened. He turned back to her, eyes hard now. The kind of hard that comes from seeing the same injustice wear different faces over a lifetime. He nodded once. "Good," he said. The word landed heavy. "Final. I'll take every one." A gasp tore from the woman's throat. The children froze. The air itself seemed to stop moving. "What?" she whispered. He didn't raise his voice. Didn't need to. "I said I'll take them. All of them." Fear flooded her face. "You can't." "I can," he interrupted. "And I will." He reached into his coat, pulled out a folded stack of bills, thick and deliberate. He didn't wave it. He didn't threaten. He simply held it out like a verdict. "You've been feeding them with scraps and prayers. I'll feed them with work, shelter, and a future." Her knees buckled. She grabbed the doorframe. "You don't understand," she said. "They're all I have." He stepped closer, lowering his voice so only she could hear. "No," he said. "They're all you've been surviving on. There's a difference." Silence swallowed the yard. One of the older boys spoke up, voice shaking but defiant. "Where would we go?" The cowboy turned, studied him, really looked. "To my ranch," he said. "Where roofs don't leak, meals come twice a day, and nobody sleeps scared." The boy swallowed. "And then?" "Then you grow," the cowboy said. "Strong, useful, free." The little girl finally looked up. "You promise?" The cowboy met her eyes. "I don't make promises," he said. "I make guarantees." He stood, clapped once, sharp and loud. "Pack what you have," he said. "We leave before dark." The woman collapsed into a chair, sobbing, not because she was losing them, but because deep down she knew she already had. As the children rushed inside, confusion colliding with hope, the cowboy turned back to the horizon. The sun dipped lower, shadows stretching long behind him. This wasn't charity, this was reclamation, and somewhere deep inside him, a door he'd sealed shut years ago cracked open, just enough to let something dangerous in, purpose. The ranch rose out of the land like a scar that had healed strong instead of pretty. Miles of fence cut the plains into order. A long, low house sat at the center, solid timber and stone, its windows glowing warm against the night. Barns stood like sentinels, corrals stretched wide. This was not a place built for comfort, it was built for survival. The children arrived after dark. They rode in silence, packed into wagons and riding double on horses, wrapped in borrowed coats. Fear clung to them, thick as the dust on their clothes. Every sound made them flinch. Every shadow looked like something that might take them back. The cowboy rode ahead straight-backed, lantern swinging from his saddle horn. He didn't look back to check if they were still there. He already knew. When the gate creaked open, the youngest began to cry. Not loud, just small, exhausted sounds. The cowboy dismounted and turned. "That ends now," he said. His voice wasn't cruel. It was firm, certain. "No one hurts you here. No one takes from you here. You pull your weight, you eat, you work honest, you sleep safe." The wagons stopped. The children stared at the house like it might vanish if they blinked. A tall man emerged from the barn, broad-shouldered, grey-bearded, eyes sharp. He took one look at the group and raised an eyebrow. "Problem?" he asked. The cowboy shook his head. "Solution," the man grunted. "That many?" "All of them." A pause, then a nod. "No questions. That was how things worked here." They were fed that night, real food. Bread that didn't crumble into dust, stew thick with meat. Milk still cold from the cellar. The children ate too fast at first, hands shaking, eyes darting like someone might rip the bowls away. No one did. One by one they slowed. One by one their shoulders dropped. Beds followed. Actual beds, mattresses, blankets without holes. The youngest refused to let go of each other, clumping together like frightened animals. The cowboy stood in the doorway, arms crossed, watching until sleep claimed them. He turned away before anyone could see the tightness in his jaw. Morning came early. The bell rang before the sun cleared the hills. Panic erupted. Children scrambling, hearts racing, old instincts screaming danger. The cowboy was already outside. "Up," he called. "Wash, eat, work, no yelling, no threats, just expectation." They learned fast. The ranch didn't beat them into obedience. It demanded responsibility. Each child was given a task, age-appropriate, measured, fair, gathering eggs, mucking stalls, carrying water, learning tools instead of dodging fists. Mistakes were corrected, not punished. Laziness wasn't tolerated, neither was cruelty. The boy who'd spoken up at the shack, Eli, tested the rules first, skipped a chore, snuck extra food, waited for the blow that always followed. Instead, the cowboy sat him down. "You steal because you're scared," he said. "You're scared because you've never owned anything. Out here, you earn. What you earn is yours." Eli stared at him, confused. "No whip?" he asked quietly. The cowboy's eyes hardened, not at the boy but at the memory behind the question. "Only once," he said. "If you ever raise your hand against one weaker than you." Eli never tested that rule. Weeks passed. Then months. The children changed. Spines straightened. Voices grew louder. Log. Real laughter echoed across the fields. Calloused hands replaced trembling ones. Nightmares faded, slowly, stubbornly. The cowboy watched from a distance. He never called them his, never hugged, never softened. But every fence repaired, every roof patched, every lesson taught carried his mark. He trained them not just to work, but to think, to choose, to stand. One night, a storm tore across the plains. Thunder cracked like gunfire. Rain hammered the roofs. The youngest screamed, memories clawing their way back. The cowboy didn't hesitate. He opened his door. "All of you," he said. "Inside." They filled the room, shaking, clinging, wide-eyed. He sat in a chair, silent, solid as the walls. One by one they leaned closer. One fell asleep against his boot. Another rested a head against his knee. He didn't move. At dawn the storm passed, and something else settled into place. They weren't just surviving anymore. They were becoming something dangerous. A family. The trouble didn't announce itself with gunfire. It came quiet. The cowboy felt it before he saw it, the way a man feels a storm in his bones long before clouds gather. Horses restless at dusk. Fence wire humming faint under a wind that wasn't there. Dogs lifting their heads and growling low, not barking, not warning, listening. He stood on the porch as the sun bled out behind the hills, hands resting on the rail, eyes narrowing toward the far road. Eli came up beside him, taller now, shoulders squared, no longer the boy who had once asked about whips. "Something wrong?" Eli asked. The cowboy didn't look at him. "Something's coming." They saw the riders the next morning. 3 men, dust-coated, armed, the kind of men who smelled weakness like blood in water. They reined in at the gate, eyes sweeping the ranch, counting buildings, counting hands, counting children. The lead rider smirked. "Heard you got yourself a collection." The cowboy stepped forward, blocking the view behind him. "This is private land," he said. "Turn around." The man laughed. "Funny thing about land. Belongs to whoever can keep it." The children watched from the barn doors, hearts pounding. Old fear tried to crawl back in. Old memories whispered that men like this always won. The cowboy didn't draw his gun. That was the first mistake the riders made, thinking that meant mercy. "You got a lot of mouths," the man continued. "Must be expensive. We're offering to take some off your hands." Silence fell heavy. The cowboy's voice came low, controlled. "Dangerous. Leave." The second rider spat. "Or what?" The cowboy finally moved his hand, but not to his weapon. He lifted 2 fingers. The ranch answered. From the barns, the corrals, the fields, figures stepped out. Young, steady, armed with tools, ropes, rifles held correctly, eyes sharp and unafraid. Not children anymore. The riders' smiles faltered. Eli stepped forward, standing shoulder to shoulder with the cowboy. "We're not for sale," Eli said. The lead rider's face hardened. "You think you can protect them forever?" The cowboy turned his head just enough to look at Eli. "Just enough. You don't need me anymore," he said. Then he faced the riders again. "But you still need to leave." They didn't. What followed wasn't chaos. It was precision. The ranch moved like a single body, trained, disciplined, unafraid. Horses were spooked, weapons knocked away, riders dragged from saddles and disarmed before they could understand what had happened. The cowboy ended it with a single shot into the dirt between the men's boots. "Next one goes higher," he said. They ran. Dust swallowed them whole. When it was over, the children, no, the young men and women stood breathing hard, hands shaking not with fear but with adrenaline. They had defended their home. The cowboy looked at T. Hem really looked at them, and something in his chest cracked wide open. That night they gathered around the fire. No orders, no lessons, just quiet. Finally, the smallest girl, the one who had once asked him to promise, spoke. "Are we staying?" The cowboy stared into the flames for a long time. "Yes," he said, "if you want to." They didn't hesitate. The words came out together. "We do." He nodded once. Then, for the first time, he said it. "This is your home." The fire popped. Sparks rose into the dark like stars. And the cowboy, angry once, alone once, empty once, sat surrounded by something stronger than blood, something chosen.